It's been a while since I've played a game this bad. I think the last action game I played on this level of unplayability would have been A Week of Garfield. Leave it to the developers of such fine games as Photon and Homa ga Toki to come up with something this bad. Moeru, Oniisan is based on a gag comic that ran in, well, Shonen Jump of course. It was about a boy who got lost in the mountains as a baby, was found as a teenager, and went back to high school. The plot of the game Moeru Oniisan begins when his father has bet his sister against all of the family's debts. And then you have to guess if the dice will turn up even or odd. And the only clever thing in this game, if you get it right, you win the game right there. Get it wrong and the dragon takes your sister, and so you set off to rescue her. As we move into the gameplay, I need to get something out of the way. This is not Circus Caper. Moeru Oniisan is often referred to as the Japanese version of Circus Caper, but it is a completely different game. Circus Caper is built on the same engine, and reworks a lot of the art assets, but the stages and gameplay are completely different. Also, Circus Caper is a passable game. It's not great, but it's not awful either. Moeru Oniisan, on the other hand, is virtually unplayable. The first 35 minutes of my recording was Stage 1. Once you know how to beat Stage 1, it takes 40 seconds to complete it. The game's an action platformer where the A button jumps and the B button attacks. And your attack is this stubby little punch that doesn't work very well. You have to connect the center of your fist with an enemy in order to hit them. That means that enemies that are low to the ground won't be hit, even though your fist obviously connects with them. And good luck hitting flying enemies. Fortunately, you can lean back and kick. Well, that's your low attack at least. On some stages you can swim, theoretically. The thing is, for about half a second after you start going down, you can't swim back up. So there's no rhythm to the swimming, you just mash. And to get into a small gap while swimming, you have to hold in that direction and hit jump as fast as you can. Eventually enough of you will slip into the surface that you can land on top of it. Enemies spawn in continuously. There's always a fixed number of them on the screen, and as soon as one is destroyed, the next one appears. When you're hit by one of them, you're stunned for a moment, and I do mean a moment. When you recover, you could get hit again instantly, and it's possible for enemies to park inside you and just hit you over and over again. When you do manage to defeat an enemy, they'll drop something. A rice ball will restore 1 bar of health, while a hamburger will restore 2. The other thing that the enemies might drop are word balloons, and these are powers that you can cycle through by hitting select. A shoots out in a burst in front of you, while Q drops and slides along the ground. The most important of these abilities is the third one, Dan. It places a block in the air that you can jump onto. Don slams into the ground, destroying all enemies that are walking. And finally, Mamore spins around you, defeating enemies it hits. The first stage of Moeru Oniisan is a big teleporter maze. The bags all teleport you when you press up on them, not the gates that they're sometimes in front of. These bags interconnect a few different zones, and one of them will take you to the boss. The only way to get to the bag that will take you to the boss is to use the Dan. I spent a very long time mapping out the entire stage, following every single link, before I finally figured out that you had to use Dan to get up this cliff. Also, you can use Dan to get over the barriers at the far edges of each zone. Some of them wind up being shortcuts, but if you do it over the one at the start, you just fall off the stage and die. You only have 1 life in Moeru Oniisan, but you can continue from the start of the stage as many times as you like. Because every enemy drops something, I would recommend hanging out on the first stage and farming up for a little while. It won't help you that much if you fall into a death trap, but having some additional weapons will help you as the enemies on stage 2 start becoming much harder to destroy. Also on stage 2, you'll find these huts that you can go into. Inside, you play a bad version of Space Invaders for a very small amount of extra points. So they're totally worthless. These alligators are especially nasty, The timing on them often doesn't line up properly, and it's narrow enough that you really will have to jump while their mouths are open to even have a chance of getting across. In Circus Caper, they changed it so if you land on one of them, you get hurt rather than die. In the underwater section, sometimes things will just spawn on top of you and kill you. That'll put you back at the very start of Stage 2 again. And that is as far as I got by banging my head against this wall. I don't even have any good tips for playing Moeru Oniisan, except don't play it. It is an exercise in frustration. The small enemies on Stage 1 are simultaneously easy to deal with and incredibly irritating, while the enemies on Stage 2 are effectively impossible to defeat and incredibly irritating. At least underwater, you can just stand in one place and let the floaters come to you. Doing that for a while will let you get back your health. This is a perfect example of bad licensed games being a universal experience. I could conceivably play Circus Caper again someday. I doubt I'll ever want to play Moeru Oniisan again.